To her right is Amy Gitchell with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Also tonight, outside in the hallway, with representing FERC tonight is Lavinia DeSanto, Kim Seacrest, and Jen Ward. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Highway Administration, and the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets are participating as cooperating agencies in the preparation of the EIS. I do want to thank these cooperating agencies for all their continued assistance with the NEPA review of these projects. So with that, I'm going to briefly turn things over to Amy with the Corps of Engineers, who will go over the core process and how it relates to the review of these projects. Amy?
Good evening. My name is Amy Gitchell. I'm the chief of the upstate New York section of the regulatory branch for the New York District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I will be participating in tonight's meeting on behalf of the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers is here today to obtain information and evidence and ensure coverage of both the public's and the Corps' concerns, to assist in the regulatory review of a permit application submitted by the Constitution Pipeline Company for the construction of the pipeline that was just described by Mr. Bowman. If constructed, the pipeline would require crossings of wetlands and streams that are considered waters of the United States and regulated under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act in both Pennsylvania and New York. The Federal Regulatory Energy Commission, as a lead federal agency, will make a decision whether to issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity to allow the construction of this project. The Corps of Engineers is neither a proponent for nor an opponent of the proposed work. Our role is to determine whether the proposed activity, in this case the construction of a 124-mile pipeline that would require numerous crossings of waters of the United States, is in the overall public interest. This hearing will play an important part in that determination. Please understand that we do not expect to answer questions from the audience in this hearing related to the proposal, as we are here to obtain information and your comments. Questions on the regulatory process in general can be directed to my staff in my office on another day. The New York District has issued a public notice for this project with the comment period closing on April 7th. The entire public notice, including all the attachments, is currently posted on the New York District website. The website address is www.nan.usace.army.mil. We do have some copies of the public notice without the attachments on the registration table. I highly encourage you to leave those for folks that don't have internet access, however, because everything's on the internet. If you are not currently on our public notice email distribution list and would like to receive an email announcement for future public notices from my office, please provide your email address to one of the staff members at the registration table today. I look forward to hearing your comments this evening.
Thank you, Amy. You'll note that we have arranged for a court reporter to transcribe this meeting so that we will have an accurate record of the meeting. If you'd like to have a copy of that transcript, you may make arrangements to do so with the reporter following this meeting. So Constitution Pipeline Company and Iroquois Gas Transmission filed applications under Section 7 of the Natural Gas Act with the Commission in June of 2013. As mentioned by Amy, these projects would consist of the installation of certain natural gas pipeline facilities between Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, and Schoharie, New York. The primary purpose of this meeting is to give you the opportunity to provide specific environmental comments on the draft EIS prepared by FERC staff on the project. It will help us the most if your comments are as specific as possible regarding the proposed project and the draft EIS. I want to clarify again that the project is not being proposed by FERC. It is being proposed by Constitution and Iroquois. Rather, the FERC is the federal agency responsible for evaluating applications to construct and operate interstate natural gas pipeline facilities. Therefore, FERC is really an advocate for the process, not an advocate for the project. So So during our review of these projects, we assembled information from a variety of sources, including the applicants, you, the public, and other state, local, and federal agencies, and our own analysis and fieldwork. We analyzed this information and prepared a draft EIS that was distributed to the public for comment. A notice of availability of the draft EIS was issued for this project on February 12, 2014. We are near the end of the 45-day comment period on the draft EIS. The comment period officially ends this Monday, April 7, 2014. All comments received, written or spoken, will be addressed in the final EIS. I encourage you to submit comments to us by that date, but if we do receive comments after that date, we will do our best to incorporate those and address them into the final EIS. You may also submit comments using procedures outlined in the Notice of Availability of the DEIS, which includes instructions on how to submit your comments electronically. Your comments will be considered with equal weight regardless of how they are provided to us. If you receive a copy of the draft EIS in either a paper or CD version, you will automatically receive a copy of the final EIS. So if you did not get a copy of the draft and you want to get a copy of the final, please make sure you sign the attendance list at the outside table and provide your name and address, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the final EIS. So I want to reiterate that neither the draft nor the final EIS are decision-making documents. In other words, once they are issued, it does not determine whether the project would be approved or not. I want to differentiate between the different roles between two distinct groups at FERC. Myself and the other FERC staff members here tonight are part of the environmental review team, and we oversee the preparation of the EIS for the projects. We ourselves do not determine whether or not the project would be approved or denied. Instead, the FERC Commission, which consists of 5 presidentially appointed individuals, are responsible for making that determination. So as I mentioned, the EIS is not decision-making, but it does assist the Commission in determining whether or not how they would make their decision on the project. The Commission will consider the environmental information in that document, public comments, as well as a host of other non-environmental information, such as engineering, markets, and rates, in its decision. There is no review of a FERC decision by the President or Congress, thus maintaining FERC's role as an independent regulatory agency. However, only after taking into consideration the environmental and non-environmental information factors into consideration will the Commission make its final decision. If the Commission votes to approve the project and a certificate of public convenience and necessity is issued, Constitution and Iroquois would be required to meet certain conditions outlined in that certificate. Subsequently, FERC environmental staff would monitor the project throughout construction and restoration. They perform daily on-site inspections to document environmental compliance in accordance with applicable laws and regulations, the Constitution and Iroquois proposed plans of mitigation, and the additional conditions in the FERC certificate. Okay, so that's my overview of the FERC role. Let's not talk about that stuff. We'll move into the comment parts. Okay, so now we'll be going into hearing your comments. If you don't want to speak tonight, you can, or if you don't get a chance to speak everything that you had intended to tonight, you can still hand in written comments tonight using a comment form that we have outside the auditorium at the table. Additionally, you can mail that form into the Secretary of the Commission by following the procedures outlined in the Notice of Availability of the DEIS. Either way, your comments will be considered with equal weight. Well, as I said before, this meeting is being recorded by a court reporter. So all your comments will be transcribed and accurately placed into the public record. So I ask that each speaker first identify themselves and, if appropriate, any agency or group you are representing. Also, please spell your name for the record and speak clearly into the microphone at the podium in front. My number 1 rule is please show respect for anyone who is speaking. Due to the length of the speakers list, we probably have almost 100 people signed up. I'm going to please ask that you limit your comments to 4 minutes or less. This will ensure that we can accommodate everyone who has signed up to speak tonight. If you anticipate needing to go longer than that, I would advise summarizing your comments and submitting them to us tonight in paper form. If we have additional time at the end, we will take additional speakers that are not signed up on the speakers list.
Brian Sherman.
Good evening, Brian, B-R-I-A-N, S-H-E-R-M-A-N. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Schoharie Central School District. I'm here to specifically address the issue of the pipeline cutting across the Schoharie Career Technical Education Center and their property. In September of last year, the Schoharie Central School District Board of Education passed a resolution in support of the Capital Region BOCES refusal of Constitution Pipeline's initial offer to buy a right-of-way for $25,400. And it did so again a little over a month ago. I'd like to reiterate that no amount of money is worth the possible risk of safety to our students or any potentially negative impact on the excellent classes offered at the Schoharie CTE campus. As a prime example, the heavy equipment program at the Schoharie Career and Technical Education Center is incredibly effective. Just over a year ago, 6 students from that specific program went on to Alfred State College. This example is unprecedented and speaks volumes about the success of the program. Other students at the center routinely enter the workforce and other post-secondary programs. If the Constitution Pipeline project is cited as proposed, it would, in my opinion, jeopardize not only the safety of the students attending the CTE Center, but the future of this highly successful program. A route cutting across the area where our students practice with heavy construction equipment digging up the ground would be an accident waiting to happen. And if the students lose the valuable exterior classroom area, the program would have to be significantly changed from what it is today. Parents I have spoken with share the safety concern and may not permit their children to attend courses at the Schoharie CTE Center. This will interfere with successful and gainful employment of our CTE graduates and endanger future success of our students who have opted to participate in career and technical education programs or be job and career ready. This pipeline route flies in the face of federal and state initiatives to make all our graduates college and career ready. Many in the community are not aware that once the route is approved by FERC, this allows the Constitution Pipeline to take property, school property, by eminent domain, which is more important for safety and security of our county and region, gainful employment of our children and a skilled labor workforce for our state, or changing the route of the pipeline off school property. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the safety and security of our children.
My name is Lynn Wayman, L-Y-N-N-W-A-Y-M-A-N. I'm a member of Laborers Local 157 and Assistant Chief of the Summit Fire Department. This pipeline represents work for union trade as well as a lot of revenue for our communities. I'm here to support this pipeline as well as the environmental draft impact statement. I believe that the Constitution Pipeline will help put a lot of work that is needed for a lot of union trade. Thank you.
Around another 500 acres, and to say it's not going to be an impact, it's going to be an impact to that farm because that farm is going to die a slow death. I'm a K-full farmer. I'm in a Ag District number 2, which I helped form many years ago. And to have eminent domain come across my land, it just seems like we're not in America anymore. Now that farm employs 5 full-time people, besides our working labor force that I just mentioned. And it brings to this county, and I'm not telling you like the land agent tells you, I'm telling you the truth, and I can prove everything I said. Because Bethel Schoharie County generates $2 million every year. We milk 400 cows, and they're still milking tonight. They won't get done till midnight. And I need room for expansion on that farm. And that pipeline is designed to go right through the middle of my farm, and I can't do nothing about it. I've got ag and markets involved. They came, moved the line over to the edge. I said, that's not good enough. I can't build over it. The agent says, well, you can work over it, and you're going to get 6 figures. I don't care what 6 figures is. No money can buy that. And I'm looking at ag and markets at present for another line. Ag and markets agreed that the line that I said going north, I originally wanted it moved north. And the land agent said, no, we can't move it north. It'll cost Constitution too much money. So I've been involved in 4 lines involving my property. They dickered back and forth. And finally I said to the land agent when they moved it south, and now it goes right across my daughter's lawn besides, you have to talk to my lawyer. I'm not talking to you anymore. Don't come on my property. I want to thank the Federal Energy Commission for this opportunity to speak to you. I have forwarded you much information you have received or will receive in Washington. Thank you.
Regardless of your position, I would ask that you refrain from audible shows of disagreement or agreement during the speaker's comments. I'd hate for you to take away from the time of the speaker while they are speaking.
Lisa Stanton.
Hello, my name is Lisa Stanton, Lisa Stanton, and I am a partner on Stanton Family Farms LLC. I'm Ken's daughter-in-law. When I first started doing some research on the pipeline and expressing some of our opinions and views about the impact that the pipeline would have on our family farm, a lot of people were very concerned about whether or not we were telling the truth about the impact that it would have. People don't understand what a CAFO is. So I'm going to share very quickly that a CAFO is a concentrated animal feeding operation. That means that we take feed to the animals, and the animals are not allowed to roam over hundreds or thousands of acres like some ranches you might see out in the western part of the United States. As part of the CAFO plan, we have many rules and regulations that we need to follow. It's a multifaceted plan. First of all, we have to follow New York State pollutant discharge elimination system. And this is approved by the United States Environmental Protection Agency in accordance with the Clean Water Act of both 2003 and 2008. This controls any discharge to ground and surface water, such as runoff of manure out in pastures, or our manure storage system, and our bunk silo fermentation leachate, the runoff from the silos. With this, we have to have a Department of Environmental Conservation General Permit, GP-0-14-001. This is issued in pursuant to Article 17, Title 7, and Article 70 of the Environmental Conservation Law. Under these, we have a comprehensive nutrient management plan. This is in accordance with the Natural Resources Conservation Service Standard New York 312. As you can see, it's a multifaceted plan, and we have a lot of governmental input on what we can and cannot do on our farm. We have a planner who comes and helps us, and she works out of the Soil and Water Conservation right here in Schoharie County. In our office in the barn, we have binders full of maps of every single field that we work. Our planner has to come and sample our soil at least every 3 years. Our planner helps us design a detailed plan for when, where, and how much manure we can spread on each field that we have. We rent some land near the reservoir right here in Cobleskill, and we are not allowed to spread any manure there at all as part of our plan because of the proximity to the water. Our planner also tells us how much additional fertilizer, if any, is needed on the fields after we put the nutrients on the fields from the manure. Our planner also designs a crop rotation system for us. We are not allowed to have the same crops on the same field for an extended period of time because it will strip the nutrients in the soil. Our planner also works with engineers and helped us design our manure storage system, which is a lagoon out in the back of our farm. This lagoon had to be approved and is inspected regularly by an engineer. We also have bone silos, and during the fermentation process in the silos, there is some runoff. This silo system has also been approved and inspected regularly by engineers. We have several logbooks on the farm for our manure, spreading, storage, and handling, our crops, the weather. We have to keep track of the precipitation that falls on the farm to help with us. As my father-in-law said, we own about 1,000 acres, we rent another 500. The pipeline will affect approximately 130 acres of our farm. We're already good stewards of the environment. Putting the pipeline in this proposed course flies in the face of common sense. We're not allowed to build within 50 feet of any water. We have several small streams surrounding the base unit of our farm. Where our proposed expansion is and where this pipeline goes through is directly in the center of our farm. We can't build within 50 feet of any water. So where we're looking for our expansion, that my daughter's going to talk about in just a couple minutes, is right where the pipeline goes. We need to talk about the environmental impact statement. In Appendix H1, H2, and H3, our parcels, Alt O, New York, SC, 015, 016, and 017 are listed in there with additional comments that says their landowner resolution as yes. We have not resolved anything with Constitution at this point, and FERC has also included in there, see other recommendations above. Please take all these into account as you start to look at this before final approval, because it will have a tremendous impact on my family and on our farm. This is about environmental impact. I can't begin to tell you about the environment on our farm because this has taken a huge emotional toll on every member of our family. My father-in-law does not sleep because he's worried about the future of the farm and the impact that this pipeline will have. That creates a tense environment for day-to-day decision-making, and then it trickles down to my husband and me and my children. Please consider changing the route. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kayla Stanton, K-A-Y-L-A-S-T-A-N-T-O-N. And like my mother just said, I am the third generation on Stanton Family Farms, LLC. I have been in the barn since before I could even walk, and I've watched my grandfather build and expand on the farm. And the farm has actually built me as an individual. I remember scooping feed through feed carts in our tie-style barn to all the cows and milking in the tie-style barn. And now, when I get up at 2:30 a.m. to milk my cows, I don't know how that will be if this pipeline goes through. I have been in multiple clubs and organizations that I have been able to tour farms across the country. I have seen many ideas and learned about efficiency of many facets of the farm to bring back in order for me to expand the farm as I come back. And I have been instrumental in deciding our new $300,000 parlor because of what I have seen and researched throughout these organizations. And I have also been planning our new calf and heifer facility that where we want to put it is right where the pipeline wants to go. And this is the future of our farm. We need to expand to keep farming. This next fall, I am going to go to Morrisville State College and have a dual major in agriculture business and dairy management. And then I plan to return to the farm. The New York State Senate just released the Young Farmers of New York plan. And the goal of that plan is to smooth the transfer of farms to the next generation and preserve existing farmland and help overcome obstacles to give a greater opportunity to be successful for the future generations of agriculture. If the pipeline goes through where it wants to go through, our calf and heifer facility expansion will not happen. And then like my mother said, and my grandfather, we will be in violation of our CAFO permits and have to face many, many, many fines. And my grandfather will be forced to make tough decisions about the current operation and the future of the farm. If we have to downsize or possibly not do this expansion, where is the future for me in the farm? Thank you.
Bob Beamstone, not sure if I'm saying that last name correctly. Mike Snow.
Hunting, fishing, and other outdoor activities, and are trained to protect the environment. This project will bring much needed jobs to the area with good wages and good benefits for local residents. This project will be good for the economy, helping local merchants such as restaurant holders, local suppliers, and hotels. It will also lower utility costs and taxes for local residents. This project is a win-win for New York State. This is why Teamsters Local 693 supports this project 100%. Thank you.
Toomey. I was born and raised in upstate New York, and I believe in American energy for America. I've worked on pipelines since 2008. I worked on the Millennium Line. I've worked on directional drills. I've worked on a lot of environmental crews, and environmental is one of my favorite crews to work on. I know that everybody I've worked with takes great pride in what they do, and we worked sometimes, we did whatever had to be done, whether it was handling a situation or preparing for the worst before something happened, before heavy rains, just whatever it took. I'm also a landowner. I've got beef cows, and I've worked around all kinds of farmers in Pennsylvania, and I've never talked to a single one of them that has had a problem with gas drilling or with pipelines. So I have a power line that runs across my property. It doesn't make me real happy, but if I don't have that power line there, people are not going to have electricity. And if you take away these people's electricity, you take away their gas, their oil. Pipelines supply everything in this country. These people are just ignorant to that fact. I've met people that don't even know that they have natural gas in their homes, and they're shocked to find out. They're just plain ignorant to the fact of what energy does for them in this country. Thank you.
Thanks for your copy of the draft EIS. I got the whole thing. It's incredible. It's an incredible document. The completeness is amazing. In a sense, I had the opportunity.
Diane Sepchik, DIANNESEFCIK. I live in Westerlo in Albany County, New York. The Iroquois pipeline, party to the Constitution application, runs through my town. The Tennessee pipeline is only a few miles away in Bern. Expansion of these and other transmission lines would be a direct result of approval of the Constitution application. But these and many other impacts of shale gas development are not addressed in the FERC DEIS. And it's not in my comments, but I just want to note, in 1996, Iroquois officers pleaded guilty to felony charges for environmental problems when they built this pipeline. They were fined $22 million at that time for these infractions, and that at that time was the second largest fine for any company except for the Exxon Valdez spill several years before. This DEIS overwhelmingly serves the oil and gas industry. You can throw a dart at almost any point on any page and find ample justification for criticism. In my opinion, it is so flawed, so incomplete, and so biased in favor of the oil and gas industry that FERC should recuse itself from creating it or any other EIS and stick to regulating standards and processes identified by truly independent environmental and energy consultants. The basis for this proposed project was stated in the executive summary was this. It was developed in response to natural gas market demands in the New York and New England areas, and interest from natural gas shippers that require transportation capacity from Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, to the existing Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company and the Iroquois systems in Schoharie County, New York. This misrepresents the end market scope. Domestic markets are not the only, and perhaps not even the primary markets for shale gas development. Projects are already underway to export natural gas to Canada and liquid natural gas to more distant markets. For instance, Iroquois and its reverse flow to Canada, Spectra Energy, Liberty LNG and its proposal at the Port Ambrose Deepwater Terminal, and the U.S. Department of Energy has granted the first ever LNG export permit to Dominion Resources. Justification for enduring the impacts of shale gas development in the U.S. has included energy independence, energy security, domestic energy supply, and bridge to renewables. The oil and gas industry, however, has clearly signaled its intention to export natural gas products, including highly volatile liquid natural gas. This is motivated by higher prices paid by international versus domestic markets. It does nothing to protect U.S. energy independence or non-renewable domestic reserves. It does not improve energy security, and it undermines incentives to develop renewable technologies. Domestic and global endowments of air, water, land, and energy are not being preserved and managed for the common good. They are being sacrificed and exploited for private gain and geopolitical agendas.
Please finish up.
There's so much to say. I'll just say this. That the rural communities, rural people are disproportionately impacted by shale gas development. Thank you for listening to me.
Andrew Santillo.
Robert Mead, R-O-B-E-R-T-N-I-E-D. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Center for Sustainable Rural Communities, a 501c3 nonprofit New York corporation serving Schoharie, Otsego, Delaware, Schenectady, and Albany counties. As a nod to my union brothers and sisters, I'm a proud 25-year retired member of IBEW Local 827. Our organization, by its charter, is committed to building vibrant, livable, sustainable rural communities with access to the arts and technology and encouraging environmentally compatible economic development. However, for the last 18 months, we've had very little time to do any of those important initiatives. Instead, we have been responding to an endless stream of visitors, phone calls, and emails from residents across the region who are deeply concerned, upset, and angry about the proposed pipeline. One after another, they have related to us stories of bullying, intimidation, outright lies by representatives of the pipeline company. They have told us about landsmen swinging the threat of eminent domain like a hammer and pitting neighbor against neighbor and family member against family member. They have told us about survey stakes and tapes that appear on their land while they were away visiting relatives. They have described their dream of retiring to a peaceful setting in which they have invested their life savings only to hear that it would be cut down the middle by a proposed pipeline, access road, mainline valve, metering station, communication tower, or all of the above. They have told us about their children who ride the school bus on a route that will intersect heavy truck and equipment traffic coming from ill-sited contractor yards. They have told us about drinking water that is drawn from a fragile karst aquifer that could be as close as 100 feet from pipeline blasting operations. They have told us about streams, wetlands, maple, sugar bushes, hedgerows, stands of oak and hemlock forest and hayfields, all of which they cherish, have cultivated for years, and that they need for fuel, need for food, need for peace of mind, and want to preserve for their own legacy and as a gift to their children, all threatened by this pipeline. They have told us about birds that nest year after year, eagles, blue herons, turtles, frogs, deer, fox, coyotes, bears, all threatened by this pipeline. They have told us how they have intimate knowledge of extensive ecosystems that surround their homes that the DEIS does not even acknowledge. They have told us about their grandchildren who have forts and tree houses in the path of the pipeline. They tell us about the fear they feel living next to a pipeline operated by companies whose names return Google searches filled with long lists of leaks, explosions, and fires, including one less than 12 hours ago in the state of Washington. They tell us about the fear and anger of being forced to expose their children to the emissions from compressor stations and the fear of the ultimate industrialization of the rural communities they know damn well will follow this pipeline. They tell us about the generations that have farmed their land and their hopes that their children will continue that tradition, while reporting that the reluctance of their loan officers to fund seeds for next year's planting or to fund repairs for necessary machinery, all because of the pipeline. They tell us about agricultural permits and certifications in jeopardy because of this pipeline. I have grown emotionally weary of old men, aged women, middle-aged women, and young couples with babies all sitting at my table with tears in their eyes, telling me and asking me the same questions. How could they do this to me, my family, and my community? On behalf of all of those people, I am here tonight not to ask the Commission to reconsider this unnecessary and destructive pipeline, but to beg the Commission to deny approval for this pipeline. I stand in front of two federal agencies and I stand in front of two federal agencies this evening And I suspend my pride and my ego, and I beg you, place the safety of those people, their property, their cherished environments, and their dreams above the profits of an industry that cares nothing about them. Defend them, protect them, stand up for them, because they have far too much to lose, and you are the only thing that stands between them and that loss. Thank you.
Pipeline ruptures in the past 14 years. Please don't let our school be number 295. Go around the school. I don't have an opinion of the pipeline either way, but please, for the sake of our education, keep it off our school.
Taylor Brown. Taylor Brown.
R-I-V-I-T-E-R-A. I am a lawyer at the McNamee Law Firm in Albany, New York, and I am here tonight to speak specifically to the DEIS on behalf of the Capital Region Board of Cooperative Educational Services. The first speaker tonight was Superintendent Sherman. You've heard from several students about the pipeline crossing the Career and Technical School. I want to put that in context here. The school owns 63 acres and only about 30 of those acres are available to teach because there's a gorge and creek that runs through the property. About 7 of the remaining acres are taken up by buildings and grounds. And this is a very specific school that was designed exactly to teach heavy equipment, operation, maintenance, and safety. So it has big bays, big garages, outbuildings, and an entire teaching course on the remaining 23 acres that are available. Of those 23 acres, the pipeline proposes to take by force, by eminent domain, 5.6 acres of the school. And just as a student just said recently, that's like taking 25% of any other campus because the classrooms are outdoors. It's like taking 25% out of the structure of the building that we're standing in, sitting in tonight, and expecting the school to still be able to perform. And notwithstanding that taking, the environmental impact statement itself says on page 4/129 that the impact of this taking on the school is not known to FERC. That you asked the pipeline to describe the impact on the school, and the pipeline company said they could not, and you published the DEIS nonetheless. Well, that's a fundamental shortcoming under NEPA, because the environmental impact statement is supposed to explore the impact, lay it all out, and mitigate it or avoid it to the extent practicable. Here, 50% of this pipeline's been rerouted over the course of the analysis of this project, yet it's still determined to go through this campus and take about 25% of the classroom away. Fundamentally, the EIS does not support that taking. It's weak, and it cannot document consistent with law this taking. It's also a high consequence area with over 200 students in the building and as many as 60 students outdoors teaching, learning at any one time with teachers, I should say. And yet that the impact of this taking is not avoided or mitigated in any respect. Moreover, when the surveyors came to the school and said they were going to take 25% of the campus away, they also said they were going to put an access road right through the school. So the temporary access road, as designed, as drawn in the EIS, goes right through the bus loop, right through the collection area where the students take the heavy equipment out of the buildings, right through the main road to the back classrooms, and is simply incompatible with teaching students how to use heavy equipment. We will be submitting written comments on this matter, and we will be intervening in this proceeding before FERC. But it's very important for you folks to know tonight that the EIS is insufficient because it does not mitigate the impact on this school. It has to go someplace else. Thank you.
Bill Morton.
Hi, my name is Bill Morton, B-I-L-L-M-O-R-T-O-N. I am representing the Village of Middleburg as a trustee. In a motion to intervene, Patricia J. Denoyers, attorney for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, stated on August 17, 2013, on behalf of the department, she said that since the location of the proposed project route has a high potential for development of natural gas extraction from Marcellus and Utica shale formations, the draft EIS must evaluate the cumulative impacts associated with these potential activities, end quote. The Village of Middleburg has two principal concerns relating to the cumulative impacts of gas drilling and fracking. First, the potential contamination of Middleburg's water supply, and secondly, the probable adverse impacts of drilling and fracking on tourism. First, according to Lane Christensen Company, a company involved in the hydrogeology of water wells, Schoharie Creek is the principal source of water for the village's water supply. Thus, it is critically important to prevent Schoharie Creek from becoming contaminated with the highly toxic chemicals associated with drilling and fracking. According to the literature, about 7% of the wells which are drilled for gas and fracking fail. This failure is associated with failed well casings. Where is this likely to occur in Schoharie County? This uncertainty is too great a risk for Middleburg. The village does not want gas drilling and fracking to occur anywhere in the Schoharie watershed upstream from the village's water supply. Should the water supply become contaminated, where will the water come from and who will pay for it? This same principle has been applied to the New York City watershed where drilling and fracking have been banned. Middleburg is opposed to the Constitution pipeline in that it will facilitate gas drilling and fracking in the watershed upstream from Middleburg. Secondly, Schoharie County is among the most scenic and historically rich counties in New York State. Tourism, subsequently, has become a critical component of Middleburg's Main Street economy. New York State Route 30, which cuts through the heart of Schoharie County, has been designated by the New York State Legislature as the Timothy Murphy Trail. The village established Timothy Murphy Park along the trails. The village also working with other communities to reestablish New York State Route 30 as the Timothy Murphy Trail and Scenic Byway. The village has been investing in additional infrastructure intended to attract tourists, namely murals and quilt blocks on building facades, large wildflower patches at each entrance to the village, and flowering baskets adorning antique lampposts, to mention a few. These investments may be for naught. Tourists simply will not tolerate the sights and sounds of the gas industry, such as the heavy volume of industrial-sized trucks traveling through the village of Middleburg via routes 30 and 145. Compressor stations located every 2 to 4 miles along major and gathering lines which leave gashes and scars on forested mountain slopes. And as many as 32 well pads, each equal to 3.5 acres in size per square mile. The village of Middleburg opposes installation of the Constitution pipeline as it will facilitate gas well drilling and fracking, which in turn will disrupt and degrade tourism. I wish to submit into evidence a video entitled, quote, "Drilling for Natural Gas in Schoharie County, New York. Lessons learned from Bradford and Susquehanna counties of Pennsylvania," end quote, for the express purpose of demonstrating what a community can expect from gas drilling and fracking. The truth be known, the impacts to tourism, especially the massive deployment of trucks, cannot be mitigated. The village has no intention to endure cumulative impacts on water quality and tourism in order for the gas industry to profit. The village of urges FERC and the Corps of Engineers not to deliver projects such as Constitution Pipeline, which will denigrate the village and more broadly surrounding areas. Also included is a map of natural gas leased properties in Schoharie County outside of the pipeline right-of-way, which verifies the intent of the gas industry to drill and frack in Schoharie County. I'd like to turn these two packets with the video over to the Corps of Engineers and FERC. Where should I put them?
You can lead over to staff outside of the table.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sweat, T-E-R-R-Y-S-W-E-T-T. I am the director of the Capital Region Career and Technical School, which has a campus here in Schoharie. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening about the proposal by Constitution Pipeline to run a high-pressure gas pipeline through Capital Region Career and Technical School's Schoharie campus. Career Tech is a Middle States accredited and New York State Education Department approved school operated by Capital Region BOCES. We offer more than 40 technical programs of study for high school and adult students at our campuses in Albany and Schoharie. Hands-on learning is the hallmark of the Career Technical School experience. While traditional lecture, reading, writing projects are all part of our programs, the majority of our students' time is spent gaining practical experience in their chosen trade or profession. Currently, we have 208 students enrolled in programs on the Schoharie campus. At Schoharie CTE, we offer 8 areas of study, the very most popular of which is our residential construction and commercial construction heavy equipment program. We currently have 59 students attending these programs daily. Our construction heavy equipment are experiencing our highest enrollment due to the increased demand for trained professionals in these areas. The 63-acre Schoharie campus, constructed in 1972, was specifically designed to provide students with ample and diverse terrain where they can hone their skills with a range of heavy equipment, including backhoes, bulldozers, excavators, farm tractors, skid steer loaders, dump trucks, and rollers. During their coursework, students learn under the supervision of teachers to safely operate each piece of equipment. Digging, trenching, operating, among other skills, are practiced on a daily basis. While Capital Region BOCES does not endorse or condemn the Constitution Pipeline project as a whole, we do believe a gas pipeline running through the Schoharie campus would threaten the safety of our students and the future of the campus and its programs. Having to navigate around a potentially volatile pipeline would add an additional layer of stress to an already exacting practice and create justified concern about the safety of all of the students learning on our campus. According to a study commissioned by Capital Region BOCES, an accidental rupture or failure of the pipeline at our campus location would be fatal to any student receiving instruction outdoors. And there is no guarantee that students and staff inside classrooms would survive a blast or thermal radiation either. I am the director of the Career Technical School. I do not want to have those kinds of conversations with parents. The safety and welfare of our students is our #1 concern. Every school day, parents and guardians entrust their children to us with the expectation that we will treat them as our own, and that we are invested not only in their academic success, but their personal safety. For these reasons, we believe it would be irresponsible for us to endorse the location of a gas pipeline on a BOCES educational facility. Thank you.
My name is Kevin Kutcher, Kutzscher, and I am a current sitting Schoharie County representative on the Capital Region Board of Cooperative Education Services. I'm very surprised tonight. I don't really have any prepared remarks, but in my thought process of what I might say tonight, there's two dates that anybody that has lived in Schoharie County can remember. That is March of 1990, when a 8-inch pipeline devastated an entire village. And August of 2010, when 40 families, 110 people, had to be evacuated from the hamlet of Broome Center and Mackey when the pipeline ruptured again. Luckily this time there was no fire. It was a small leak. I put those together with the thought of safety of our students and the children and our staff and faculty. And I remember my mother calling me and saying, "What should I do?" My mom lives in Mackey. They've told me I have to leave. She was over a mile away from the leak. I told her that she was more than welcome to come to my house. She decided not to, and luckily nothing happened. I just think that putting the pipeline through our school in the vicinity of students that are training and using equipment that they're not familiar with at the time is a really, really bad idea. I would appeal to everyone to use their common sense and reposition this away from the school. Thank you.
Howard, H-O-W-A-R-D, Hannum, H-A-N-N-U-M. I am co-founder of the Concerned Citizens of Trout Creek. First, I'd like to say that the presence of the children behind me are very encouraging and very inspiring. And I can only hope that their enthusiasm would rub off on the children located throughout Delaware County. I direct your attention to 4.9.5 of the document dealing with property values and mortgages. 4.9.5. Now, how many people here tonight have tried to sell a property in the state of New York?
Can't sell it because there's no job.
What's the biggest problem?
No job, no well.
I'll tell you what the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is that the people on the other end can't find a mortgage. How many times have we been on the phone with the broker and we're saying, are they coming up this weekend? They're supposed to come up on Sunday. Are they going to be here on Sunday? Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, but the buyers can't find a mortgage. If you talk to any broker in any state in the country, they'll tell you New York State real estate is the toughest state to sell a house in the country. When you add in pipeline agreements and land lease agreements and easements, you open yourself up to a whole other set of documentation, making a very difficult situation next to impossible. Now, 4.9.5, I'm not going to read that to you because it'll take up the rest of my 4 minutes. But I will paraphrase and say we received comments regarding the potential effect of the pipeline on property values. Specific issues mentioned include the evaluation of property encumbered by a pipeline easement, being the responsible party for the property taxes, insurance issues, and they give 3 or 4 paragraphs with timber laws, etc., etc. Land values are determined by appraisals which take into account objective characteristics of the property, such as size, location, and any improvements. However, subjective valuation is generally not considered in the appraisals. Well, let me state right here, right now, that if and when I sell my property, I will be using subjective valuation. And I can't think of one self-respecting New Yorker that would ever sell his or her property to a pipeline company from Oklahoma for a value that you deem worthy. Now, listen up, this is the good stuff here. Williams Partners submitted 3 studies to prove their point, and once again they failed miserably. They submitted these 3 studies. The first is a study called the Diskin et al. Of 2011, which looked at the effects of natural gas transmission in the state of Arizona. That has nothing to do with New York State real estate. This next one, study number 2, is really going to blow your mind. Studies conducted by PGP Valuation Incorporated, Palomar Gas Transmission, and Eco West in the state of Oregon on the LNG project. Now, what makes this unique is the gas company owns all 3 entities. The gas company basically owns the study. It's like Motor Trend Car of the Year is always a Chevy, because Chevy owns the magazine. You'll never find a Dodge as the Motor Trend Car of the Year. Well, this particular study in Oregon reflects the views of the gas company. They give 3 bullet points to prove their point in this study. There was no measurable long-term impact, and this one is really one I have to take issue with. Interviews with buyers and brokers indicated no measurable impact on value or price. Well, I would have to state right here that right now that I know you didn't interview buyers and brokers along the 124-mile Constitution pipeline route because you're not even allowed on 62% of the properties. Study number 3 is the Hansen et al. Of 2006 from the state of Washington, which studied effects of the pipeline accident the further you got away. And I will end with this. To the comment on the Hansen et al. In particular, I feel that it is overstating the obvious. The further away from an accident you are, the more return on your investment. But make no bones about it. My property located 10 miles from your accident will devalue every bit as much as the property located 200 feet away from the one that you obliterated during the explosion.
I have some comments I'm going to be leaving out front too because I've got way too much here. But I would like to finish what Diane Skeptic was going to be talking about, and then I'll continue with some more of my own stuff. Because the projects would generally traverse sparsely populated areas, this is from the ESCAs, there are a number of persons who would be at risk of injury due to a pipeline failure would be low. I'd say none. There should be none. And there is no evidence that such risk would be disproportionately borne by any racial, ethnic, or socioeconomic group. Safety impact models, however, do discriminate against rural people. This is clear in the federal standards cited in the DICE, as well as in New York DEC proposed LNG regulations. These standards provide greater protection for urban populations. All people, however, regardless of where we live, seem to be regarded as collateral damage in the scramble for profit and political advantage, especially when you consider that they are going through a school. What kind of consideration is there that these people care at all about the people over profit? None. I want to say that one thing, my first general comment about the DICE is that it's so obfuscating. You cannot read it. There are no page numbers when you go for a search online. They have sections. When you put in a certain phrase in the search, the sections come up. But and I'll say a page, but you can't find a page looking at the document, and you can't find it online. It is so difficult to find anything to comment on. I am a welder. I was a welder, a trained welder. I'm extremely concerned about unverified but first-hand reports to me that welders on the pipeline in Pennsylvania are being trained on the job. Not all, but some. It's like training a pilot on the job, flying. As a trained welder who studied for more than 1,000 hours in arc, MIG, TIG, and flux core welding, and who worked as a girth welder in the round on compressors for air conditioning units, some between 8 and probably 20 inch in diameter. Some of them were automatic welders, some stick and some MIG. I am very concerned about that welders be ASME certified, as the DICE indicates they should be. If welders are being trained on the job, you are just asking for some of these explosions that people are talking about. I am also very concerned about welds done on site due to the difficulty in keeping inclusions out of the welds. I question the testing that will be done and if it will be on every bead, on every pipe. I really actually should just probably throw this all out, because this is just another case of where the people are being just bulldozed into this. And I really do feel sorry for these people here who have the signs on that their jobs are on the line. Well, the lives are on the line. And these pipelines are just a case of that. I wonder, there's certain things in there that just mentioned very briefly. Iroquois anticipates using a combination of nitrogen and water from municipal sources for hydrostatic testing. This is on page 66, section 216. I'm concerned about the lack of detail concerning why the Iroquois pipeline group should change for their hydrostatic testing. There's nothing in there about that. I also wonder how much the Iroquois is involved in the construction, whether a separate environmental impact statement will be written regarding the connection between the Iroquois. Soil. I'm very concerned about environmental harms to soil. According to a Penn State professor in the study Topographic and Soil Constraints at Shale Gas Development in North Central Appalachians, published in the September to October 2012 issue of the Soil Science Society of American Journal, we now think that pad development is a lesser landscape disruption than the pipelines. People have talked about that. I see pipelines.
Please finish.
8-inch pipelines are what we're used to. These are 30-inch pipelines. How much disruption, how much explosion can happen with a 30-inch pipeline? This is just, it's just got to be stopped. No. Thank you.
Good pilot for 30 years. Accidentally clipped a tree and went down and went up in flames.
In our submission, we raised concerns over large blocks of relatively unbroken forest habitat that will be fragmented by the pipeline right-of-way and the negative impacts this will have on interior forest birds. The DEIS states that the right-of-way will fragment 36 miles of interior forest and over 300 interior wooded tracts. These lands to be bisected by the right-of-way are the last large forested parcels in the area in many cases. This will be the greatest single act of forest fragmentation in the region. We documented in our submission that this will have major negative impacts on nesting forest birds, many of which are already in decline and at risk. Numerous studies show that creating corridors and forest edges in larger tracts increases the rates of nest predation and parasitism. Birds affected include many neotropical migrants such as wood thrush and scarlet tanager, as well as resident woodland birds. The fragmented forest areas represent much of the nesting habitat for these species. In turn, central New York is an important stronghold for breeding habitat for these species. The importance of the remaining undisturbed forest lands cannot be overstated. The DEIS proposes largely undefined mitigation for impacts on forest birds and states the developer plans to reduce the right-of-way from 110 feet to 100 feet. This demonstrates an appalling ignorance or a convenient avoidance of the science we presented in our comments. A 100-foot corridor is several times the width that will introduce the negative impacts found in avian studies. A 10-foot reduction for mitigation is no mitigation at all. In fact, there is no possible mitigation for these impacts, and to suggest that there is serves only to provide the developer with a screen to avoid addressing the true negative impacts of the pipeline regarding birds. Despite the clear scientific consensus and evidence that fragmenting forests produces significant impacts over bird species, and despite FERC's own statistics showing that major forested areas will be affected by the pipeline, the DEIS somehow reaches the conclusion, quote, that the proposed project would not have a significant adverse effect on wildlife. When projects pose such a clear and present threat to bird habitat as this, one wonders what FERC and its staff could possibly consider a significant adverse impact. The bias in favor of approving this project is blatant and obvious. We urge that this document be withdrawn and an even-handed and scientifically valid environmental review of this major project be carried out and submitted for public consideration as required by law. Thank you.
To comment on the DEIS for the Constitution Pipeline, I'd like to take a little different track. I Googled the U.S. Department of Energy, total U.S. energy consumption, the latest data available, 2012. 26,000 terawatt hours. That's a 27 with 15 zeros after it. Annual energy consumption, all sources, all purposes. That's residential, commercial, industrial, transportation, and electricity generation. That works out to 83 megawatt hours per capita in the United States. Our society, as any modern society, depends on energy. To put into perspective the need for fossil fuels, I went through the math of calculating sole source energy. Starting with Schoharie County as the example, 32,700 residents. For our per capita share of U.S. energy consumption, our county alone would need 310,000 windmills, 1 megawatt apiece. If we were to sole source nuclear power plants at 1,500 megawatts, our county alone would need 200 nuclear power plants. Solar, for our county, we would need 5,100 square miles of solar panels. Our entire county is only 626 square miles. We would cover 8 counties with solar panels, killing every fish, every bird, every tree, because the sun would be blocked. The U.S. energy consumption, to do it 100% in solar, would cover 96% of the Earth's land surface. Straight math, right out of Google.
C-R-A-I-G, Stevens, S-T-E-V-E-N-S. I'm a 6th generation landowner in Pennsylvania, Silver Lake Township. My mom's from Oswego. I'm a 5th generation New Yorker. Here tonight, I think you need to rename this project the unconstitutional pipeline. Thank you very much. There's the Constitution itself. I carry it in my back pocket every day. My dad called it the rule book. Let me read from you Amendment 5, which says, "Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation." Ask the people that live near the pipeline that blew up in Kentucky that leveled multiple homes what just compensation would be, especially if a family member's life was taken in that. America's fuel. No, folks, we're America's fools. There is 37 import-export terminals in place right now. They're trying to reverse flow because we have to do what? Save Ukraine and Western Europe? How about we start saving ourselves first? Anytime you're competing with a foreign country for the same commodity that we need in our own homes, guess what? The price goes up, folks. And that's a law of supply and demand. Of course, we can look at what's happening to my landowning partners. You know, these wells, these hydrofrac, high volume wells, are lasting about 3 to 5 years of output. The first year alone is up to 70% reduction in its output. Is that what we're selling out for? Is a couple years of fuel out of each well? Because if you think my neighbors are getting rich in Pennsylvania, the fastest moving legislation right now in Pennsylvania is the Royalty Protection Act. Hey, these fools that are coming here telling us they're going to make us all kind of money don't even know how to pay people on a legal contract, and they're getting their rear end suit off to where we're at. Environmental impact statement. Let's look at the constitutional impact statement for a moment. Suspending operations for import. There is no such thing as imported natural gas, but they're setting up export. Now, I asked the Constitution Pipeline people in Williams last year when you do the scoping hearings directly on camera, if they know where this gas is going and if they can assure me it's not going overseas. Guess what? They said, we don't know where it goes after Albany. Well, if you just go on their website, you can see under key points, one of the highlighted items is LNG exports. On their own website, guys. You know, is this thing on FERC? Are you listening to me? They can't even trip over their own lives. That's what they're doing. Please. They abuse us as landowners. The pipeline that went across my property, we were assured, and I have the legal document here showing they're supposed to put in erosion and sediment control, not harm the environment. Well, guess what? They got found guilty by not one, but 2 agencies in Pennsylvania, Fish and Boat and DEP, that they violated their own agreement with me. And guess what? They fined them $20,000 after filing 5 criminal complaints. Now, that wasn't Williams, but Williams now owns that pipeline. And by the way, if you guys are from Williams, come up to my property and tell me how you're going to clean up the mess left behind by your predecessors. Hey, they spent $150 million to put that pipeline in. And you know what they sold it for to Williams? Laser did? $750 million. By the way, they only gave $350 million in cash, $450 million in stock. So the same guys that ran that pipeline across my property and destroyed my property doing it are major shareholders in the company that wants to do this. And don't even let me get started on Cabot. I got documents right here from our own state DEP saying they contaminated the water of 19 of my neighbors. And that's the documents from the DEP. And hundreds more that were released last year documents showing massive water contamination. Be careful what you ask for, New York. You might get it. Come down and see what's really going on and talk to real landowners that care about private property rights and civil rights, and ask these people, who are you kidding? They've been allowed for the last 2 years, Williams, to go around to these local communities and give out grants, quote unquote. Millions of dollars of grants. Thanks very much, but keep your grants. We've had enough of your buy-off money in northeastern Pennsylvania. We're not interested anymore in falling for the banana in the tailpipe, as Eddie Murphy said in Beverly Hills Cop. We don't need your gas. You know why? If it's going to come out of my backyard, let us use it here. Why did our propane prices go up 3 times higher than last year, just in the last 90 days? They reversed the flow of that pipeline that we probably let them steal by eminent domain. Instead of coming up with propane, they're sending all of ours down. We are a third world extraction colony. And hey, all you guys in the orange shirts back there hoping for jobs, yeah, be careful what you're asking for. Some of the jobs I've seen are not very fun. Secondly, or safe. Secondly, make them guarantee you jobs, and any job will be short-term. And for the landowners, say no to this and say no fast. They'll offer a few bucks a foot, and they'll steal it, lifetime.
Please conclude your comments.
I will, in saying that, guess what? When they're making billions of dollars sending that gas through your property that they stole by eminent domain and paid you a few bucks and cut down all the trees in the pipeline route, you're going to get pennies. Wake up and figure out a different way to do this, because I need energy, but I need clean water, and I need my civil rights a lot more than they need my land for a pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone. Thank you for holding these hearings. Last name is H-U-S-T-O-N. I just want to say that I've really been following this for quite some time, and this is a point of reference. There were actually in the spectra I want to call it the resistance group, because it's really a massive group based in New York City that was involved in the spectra of pipeline resistance. They were able to achieve, I think, 600 interveners prior to the spectra docket. The largest number of interveners in any FERC docket was 35. They filed 5,000 comments. Many of them were substantive. And the pipeline is in the ground, and it's in service. So I question exactly, is this going to have any effect? Maybe it's just like a big show. It's to channel our energies into a theater where we don't have any agency. But regardless of that, we are still gathered here because we want to believe that this process might have an impact. So I'm just going to point out a couple of issues about the application and also the draft EIS. And I want to echo all the other people that said that this is like laughable and the clear bias is obvious for anybody that looks at the draft EIS. I'll give you an example. I made a video about this, and basically the question is, what's the start of the Constitution pipeline? And it's really curious because when you ask Williams employees, you actually get 3 different answers. You get half the time they'll say, yes, it is the start. The Williams Central Station is the start of the Constitution pipeline in Brooklyn Township, Pennsylvania, Susquehanna County. Let's say a third of the time they say that. Another third of the time they'll say no. Williams Central Station, that's a completely separate project. And then the other third of the time is really bizarre because they'll say yes and no. They'll say, yes, well, it is the start of the Constitution, but it's not part of the Constitution. And I just do like a face palm at that point. I'm like, what? It's the beginning, but it's not part. Okay. And I've noticed that FERC has adopted this scheme because FERC calls it a related but non-jurisdictional facility. Okay, it's related but non-jurisdictional. Curiously, the draft environmental impact statement actually lists that there's 3 compressor stations that are going to be at the beginning of this pipeline. And one of them is in New Milford, PA, where we're going to be all on Thursday. And it's double. I mean, I've flown over Williams Central Station, and it's massive. And it's just, I think it's 4 engines. This one in New Milford, I haven't seen it yet, but it's 8 engines. It's big. Let's go back to Williams Central Station. Does Williams Central Station have any environmental impacts? Well, it turns out it does. It has a lot. 98,801 tons per year. 98,801 tons per year. This is a train car loaded with coal 10 miles long. That's the environmental impact of just one of the 3 compressor stations at the beginning of this activity. Does the draft environmental impact statement recognize any of the impacts of the initial compressors? Well, it does, and it says these impacts can be estimated, but curiously, it doesn't go about any calculations or any estimates of what those environmental impacts are. The other thing is that the environmental impacts of the draft EIS only take into account the environmental impacts of the pipeline itself. So what's really strange about this is it kind of like just omits or maybe forgets about what's being transported in the pipeline. Is there any environmental impact
Please, concluding comments, sir.
of the gas in the pipeline? 650 decatherms per day. So I did some initial calculations. I'm going to wrap up, but I just want to say this last point. I just did some calculations to figure out what is, because somebody asked me this months ago, and it really has taken me months to figure this out. So I'm going to tell you and all of you today the result of this calculation. The question is, how many gas wells in Susquehanna County is required to keep the Constitution pipeline at 650,000 decatherms per day? Does the draft document look at that or ask that question? No. Hold on, this is really important. So,
30 seconds, Mr. Houston. Please, 30 seconds, you said.
tell them to give me time.
You're wasting your time. 30 seconds.
Listen, this is an important question that is not in the draft EIS. You should be asking this question, not me. The answer is initially 110 new wells and 80 new wells per year. I want you to ask my friends Craig and Vera. That's double Cabot's production in Pennsylvania. Cabot's activities in Susquehanna County is going to double for the Constitution pipeline, and there have already been drastic impacts.
Don't grandstand. Don't run your camera. I worked in Pennsylvania.
I'd ask everyone to please respect the speaker while they're speaking.
Thank you.
And I'll make a decision when their time is done.
R-A-Y-L-E-W-I-S. First of all, I would like to disclose that I am also a proud union member, and I can relate very well to their concerns about jobs. But what's interesting is almost all of the support tonight has revolved around job creation. Now, I'll come back to that in a moment. We all know that the wording eminent domain is purely sugarcoating for stealing. All right, I'm going to repeat that. We all know that the wording for eminent domain is stealing. This is America, and not one job, not one single job should ever be created by stealing anyone's property. Thank you.
And that's economics, environment, and then eminent domain has been spoken here so many times this evening. And I think that as I've traveled around the country, and I've been in Colorado, I've been in Wyoming, I've been in North Dakota, I've been in Montana, and I've seen this gas development follow me around the country. I can say that, it's like a Monte game. I think that the environment and the people are always the losers in this game. It always seems to be a stacked deck for the production companies. Now, I think that, talking about the Constitution pipeline and the environmental aspects of it also has to include looking at these other elements as well, particularly the economics. Now, it's not a real energy policy behind the shale gas, and I would like to offer some quotations, not of my own, but they're from an industry expert, and if you give me just a moment, I'll just look at this. This is an Arthur Berman, and this is found on oilprice.com, and this was an interview with him. He is a geological consultant with 34 years of experience in petroleum exploration production. He is currently consulting for several E&P companies and capital groups in the energy sector. He frequently gives keynote addresses for investment conferences and is interviewed about energy topics on television, radio, and national print and web publications, including CNBC, CNN, Platts Energy Week, BNN, Bloomberg, Platts Financial Times, and the New York Times. Now, some of the quotes in this extensive interview were just mind-opening to me, anyway. And I'd like to have an open mind, but I don't have an open mind to the point that my brain's going to fall out. So I'm looking at this, I think, fairly. Quote, recently the CEO of a major oil company told the Houston Chronicle that the shale revolution is only the first inning of a 9-inning game. I guess he must have lost track of the score while waiting in line for hot dogs because production growth in the United States and U.S. shale gas plays, excluding the Marcellus, is approaching zero. Growth in the Bakken and Eagle Ford has fallen from 33% in mid-2011 to 7% in late 2013. Oil companies have to make a big deal about shale plays because that is all that is left in the world. Let's face it, these are truly awful reservoir rocks, and that is why we waited until all the more attractive opportunities were exhausted before developing them. It is completely unreasonable to expect better performance from bad reservoirs than from better reservoirs. Quote, production from shale gas is not a revolution, it is a retirement party. Quote, the shale gas boom is not a sustainable except at higher gas prices in the United States, which we've all suspect and believe anyway. Investors, quote, investors have tolerated a lot of cheerleading about shale gas over the years, but I don't think this is going to last. Quote, taken together, the U.S. needs to replace 19 billion cubic feet per day each year to maintain production at flat levels. That's almost 4 Barnett shale plays at full production each year. So you can see how hard it will be to sustain gas production. Then there are all the efforts to use it up faster. Natural gas vehicles, exports to Mexico, LNG exports, closing coal and nuclear plants, so it only gets harder. This winter, things have begun to unravel. Comparative gas storage inventories are near their 2003 low. Sure, weather is the main factor, but that's always the case. The simple truth is that supply has not been able to adequately meet winter demand this year, period. Say what you want about why, but it's a fact that is not inconsistent with the fairy tales we continue to hear about cheap, abundant gas forever. Because of high decline rates, new wells must constantly be drilled to maintain production. Shale plays will last for years, not decades. I expect by the time that all the construction is completed to allow gas export, the domestic price will be high enough not to bother. It amazes me that the geniuses behind gas export assume that the business conditions that resulted in the price benefit overseas will remain static until they finish building export facilities, and that the competition will simply stand by when the awesome Americans bring gas to their markets. The U.S. acts like we are some kind of natural gas superstar because of shale gas. Has anyone looked at how the U.S. stacks up next to Russia, Iran, and Qatar for natural gas reserves? Everyone agrees that oil and gas will cost more if we allow exports.
Please conclude your comments, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Barbara, Laura?
Advocacy, prostitution. It is well documented that these are the businesses that profit from the workers of pipelines and fracking infrastructure build out. In less than a year, however, these temporary out-of-state employees will be gone. Those 325 temporary local jobs will be gone, and 7 lucky people might have permanent jobs. The Catskills and Southern Tier are tourist destinations and farming communities. A high-pressure gas pipeline and the fracking that would inevitably follow would condemn this region to an economic fate far worse than it has ever seen. Here is only a partial list of current revenue-building industries that would be threatened by this pipeline and fracking: trout fishing, hunting, bed and breakfasts, campgrounds, canoe rentals, restaurants, dairies, beef cattle operations, vegetable farms, apple orchards and berry growers, breweries, cider makers and distilleries, cheesemakers, yogurt factories, garden centers and landscape businesses, equestrian centers and stables, retreat centers, caterers, farmers markets, colleges and universities, technical schools. These relatively small businesses may seem inconsequential when compared to a large out-of-state company such as Constitution Pipeline. Collectively, however, these businesses, many of them independent, are the foundation of our region's economy and are responsible for a significant amount of its revenue. These small businesses represent the work of many local people, positively affecting our economy, our environment, and the general public's impression of the Catskills and Southern Tier. They care about what happens, these businesses do, to our air, water, and landscape. We who live far out in the country, like me, will never be able to hook into natural gas. We're too remote to make it financially feasible to run lines to us. People who live in villages along the pipeline may be able to access gas, but only after they pay a hefty fee to run a line from their house to the municipal line fee that often runs in the thousands. Should a homeowner decide to take the gamble and pay to tap in, who is to say that gas prices will stay low? In fact, Constitution Pipeline Company has reported to its investors that it will be exporting its fracked gas to Canada and other places out of this country. There, it will command a high price, and here we will have less and less gas. It will become more expensive. Homeowners will be stuck with a new form of heating, fuel that ends up being more costly than what they formerly had. Our region will be home to a high-pressure, highly potentially explosive gas pipeline, which is not great for attracting tourists or students. And Constitution and its shareholders will see great profits. Does this seem like a fair trade-off? Thank you.
Epifanio Bevilacqua, B-E-V-I-L-A-C-Q-U-A. We need to condemn the pipeline. The DIS is incomplete. They didn't put in the compressor stations. They're only telling you pieces of the puzzle. This should be condemned. It should be stopped. Plus, they're under investigation. They think they come here, they're going to own upstate New York, Constitution Pipeline. Also, the environmental, Jerry Miglio is on this, and hopefully the district attorney will be on this. So everybody's going to get investigated, to be subpoenaed. I've dealt with the FBI, so I'm not afraid. So, keep playing games, Constitution. Back up.
Clark, Rhodes. Leo McAllister.
Leo McAllister, M-C-A-L-L-I-S-T-E-R. Thank you for letting me speak today. My wife and I moved here about 42 years ago. We moved here because of the terrain, the hills, the valleys. It was a beautiful area. We raised 5 children here. We have 2 of them have come back to this community, and we have 3 grandchildren here. So the last thing I want to see is a problem with our environment in this community. About that same time that we came here, there was another transportation line that was proposed for this area. And for most of you know that was I-88. And I certainly had my doubts whether I would want a 4-lane highway coming through Schoharie County. And I'm sure there were at the time meetings like this for people to express their views on it. I'm sure a lot of people were for it, and a lot of people were against it, just like the pipeline. And I certainly didn't even really know. I didn't want our environment messed up, because that was the place I wanted to be here for the rest of my life. It's interesting because there is noise here with the interstate, and it has taken up area that was a beautiful valley. And unlike the pipeline, which will take up very minimal property in this county, it has created a little bit of a problem for us. But I'll bet you most of the people in this room would not want to have 88 go away and go back to Route 7 and Route 20. It took me 2.5 hours to get to Binghamton when I had to go there prior to 88 coming through. Now, I understand that with the Stantons and with this BOCES, there obviously should be some things worked out through FERC to help them out. But one of the, or in fact, many of the people who talked tonight talked about pipeline safety. And it's interesting because if you look at and we talked about different accidents that happen throughout the country. There's a 4 times greater chance of you and I getting struck by lightning than a pipeline accident. Most of us who came here tonight came either by car or bus or by truck. And there's a 3,000 times greater chance for us being killed in one of those than a pipeline accident. And that's a fact. We've had a pipeline in the northern part of Schoharie County for over 50 years. We've never had a problem. In fact, most of us wouldn't even know where it's going to go, or where it does go, because vegetation grows up afterwards. The same thing will be true of this pipeline. The other thing that was mentioned by some people that, you know, someone's going to get paid some money to do this. This county is going to get paid over $4 million a year from the real estate taxes on this pipeline. This school district, Cobleskill Richmondville, will get over $1 million. To put that in perspective, we'd have to build 300 to 400 homes in this town and village to usurp that much real tax levy. Think about how many, the gas, the water, the sewer, the infrastructure, all the costs for 300 to 400 homes. And it just wouldn't happen, obviously. So,
what I'm going to talk about is the potential impact radius. The question that I have is, and I know the answer, which is that you don't have to inform the people running on either side of the pipeline whether they're involved in the potential impact radius. Only the town advisors and the fire department are supposed to be informed by the builder of the pipeline. Now I can see now that the people who are talking about the BOCES school have not been informed about it. They have no idea about it. So let me help you them out, and you. The potential impact radius for the Constitution pipeline is 986 feet on either side. But is that a correct figure? So I did some analysis. I used the formula to derive the potential impact radius, and I applied it to the El Paso pipeline. And I came out with some curious answers. The potential impact radius of the El Paso pipeline would be 537 feet. There were 12 campers that were 675 feet away. They were all killed, even though there was a river 100 feet away from them. There were vegetation by the river that was 2,025 feet away on the other side of the river that was impacted by infrared radiation, which dried out green leaves, barks, and caused the trees to cause on fire. So I call this zone the minimum kill zone of the El Paso pipeline. Since the Constitution pipeline would operate at 219% higher than the El Paso pipeline, I come up with a figure of a minimum kill zone of 4,435 feet. 4,435 feet radius. Now this is not a political document. This is not a PR document as the formula for the potential impact radius was given to you by, in 2000. It was 2000. So from that, we also have a crater that was left by the El Paso pipeline. The crater that would be left by an explosion by the Constitution pipeline would be 110 feet wide by 248 feet long. Let me say that again. It would be 112 feet wide, 248 feet long. What I want for FERC to do is to stop right now this S-guys, and I want you to go back and recalculate, as I have, the potential impact radius because it's incorrect. It's based on PR. It was given to you by a PR firm. That was one of the contributors of it. They wrote it. It was in their September-October brochure or writings. So let's see. I've said mostly everything I want. Let's see. How much more time do I have?
Please conclude your comments, sir.
Okay. Let me go to the back, and let's hear from Rex Tillerson, chairman of the CEO of Mobile Exxon Corporation. Quote, "The consequences of a misstep in a well-placed well or pipeline, while large to the immediate people that live around the well or pipeline, in the great scheme of things is pretty small. But if your relatives are killed, your neighbors are killed, I don't think it's pretty small." Thank you.
Hello, my name is Allegra Schechter, Allegraschecter. I am speaking as an individual and an intervener. I have several major concerns with the placement of the contractor yards in the town of Maryland, village of Schenevus in Otsego County. This contractor yard was situated 3/10 of a mile from Schenevus Central School, which is a kindergarten K-12 building. I believe the siting of this yard was done with no acknowledgement, let alone careful consideration or study, of its close proximity to the school. A construction yard is a source of constant truck traffic. The noise from such a busy place is not conducive to a school's quiet study and learning environment. The daily transportation to the work sites of both heavy equipment and trucks carrying 40-foot sections of pipe would create the inevitable traffic congestion. This could not only interfere with the primary school bus routes, but the airborne dirt, stone, and dust and diesel fumes could affect the children's breathing as well. Many children have asthma, and they would be very sensitive to diesel fumes. This could result in a loss of school attendance for these children because of illness from respiratory problems. FERC has stated in its recently released DEIS, Environment Section 4.1.3.7, shallow bedrock, to excavate the trench line in the areas identified with shallow bedrock, blasting may be necessary in order to install the pipeline to the proper depth. If shallow bedrock is encountered, other methods of bedrock removal, such as ripping, chipping, grinding, would be attempted first before blasting would be used. And then it goes on to say the New York portion would traverse 37.4 miles of shallow bedrock. A contractor yard is the likely place to store dangerous materials, including chemicals, diesel fuel, and the explosives that are needed to blast through the shallow bedrock in this part of the pipeline. Our area is all shallow bedrock. I do not think these are things we would want near our school or our bus route. In addition, the Richmondville contractor yard is situated 4/10 of a mile from the building that you're in right now. The track team regularly runs along Route 7. The traffic congestion would again interfere with the school bus routes and the constant noise of a contractor yard, which is a stable site. It's not something that's going away. Will be here for many years. I do not think that we want chemicals, explosives, and this kind of thing near a school. Getting back to the Schenevus schoolyard, It's a two-parcel adjoining site, and it covers over 12 acres. A water well was drilled on that property last year. Cabot Williams could very well decide to place a man camp there. This temporary housing is built for transient workers, and unlike, I'm sorry to tell the people that are here in the orange shirts, but they bring in mostly their own men to work on the pipeline, and they're not hiring local workers. These transient camps have been found to be a place that invites in drugs, alcohol, prostitution, and other criminal activities. In Bradford County, Pennsylvania, where they have had these man camps for years, drunken driving arrests were up 60%, and criminal sentencing was up 35% in 2010, according to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Zach Needles, August 15, 2011. I do not think this is something we want going on near our school either.
Please conclude your comments, ma'am.
In a letter written by the senior project manager of the Constitution in a letter written to the senior project manager of the Constitution Pipeline by Scott Fickbaum, the district manager of Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District, there is a federally designated wetland in the middle of this property and several within 1/4 mile. In addition, the Skenevas Creek is located within 1/4 mile of this contractor yard site. This is a DEC protected trout stream classification. A few days ago, Governor Cuomo sent out a letter announcing that New York offers some of the best fishing in the country, with trout and salmon fishing season starting April 1st, just around the corner. We've made it easier than ever this year for New Yorkers to be ready to enjoy great outdoor fishing on opening day. Does New York want to lure in tourists?
Ma'am, your time has expired. You can submit the remainder of your comments written.
It seems we need to get our priorities in order. Thank you.
Councilor Brady, 4-7. I understand the union's position. But my problems are exactly this. My family, my friends, and my neighbors have been threatened by the land agents. Specifically, John Bricks said to my face on the phone, unless you sign, we will go through eminent domain and you will lose your land. It was a direct threat to me. I don't like that. And you did not address my letter to that. I am an engineer, I'm a designer. I understand what's going on. I understand we need energy. My first problem and foremost problem is the current pipeline route goes through the aquifer of my valley, which I get my water from, and will be, through my calculations of my well depth being 79 feet, will be 35 feet from the pipeline level in the aquifer. That's 79 feet minus 20 feet to the road level, the low level of the bowl in front of my house, minus 4 feet from the bed of the road, minus 10 feet to where DEC calls the pipeline should be below the watershed or the wetlands that's huge in my valley that I will get to in a minute. And then 10 feet from the bottom of my well. So that leaves 35 feet. Difference between the pipeline and where I get my drinking water from. I have a problem with that. So do my neighbors, Ken Stanton and his family, the Bixby's. We have a problem with this. Second, the pipeline goes through massive watershed, massive ecosystem, massive wetland. You're talking 2,000 to maybe 3,000 geese a year go into the 20-acre ponds that are in my valley. The pipeline is inside, the kill zone will wipe out my valley, rim to rim. You will destroy a giant wetland that your satellites and your airplanes fly over and have no idea. I'm 34 years old, I was born and raised in Schoharie, I'm a Middleburg Knight, I bought my family's home because I love Schoharie County. You people don't know this land. I've walked this valley. I know it like the back of my hand. I know what animals are there, and you're going to destroy them. Anyway, Beavers currently will be within 200 feet of my well and my neighbor's well. So either way you cut it, going through my dad's land that's between us, you're going to be within 200 feet of my well. That's a water problem, if I'm correct. Also, the current pipeline will run over the ridge above the Cobleskill Reservoir and potentially polluting the town of Cobleskill's source of water to cut the ridge and come into my valley. So again, that's a water problem. Final comment, bringing the pipeline out of the mountains and hills and people's backyards and waters, put it back where it belongs, where they requested it, back down the 88 corridor. Give us jobs, utilize the old Guilford Mills Industrial Park, build what you need there, let the pipeline do what they need with an industrial park meant for industrial stuff, like pipelines. It's 6 miles from there to where it connects in the right station. You don't have to worry about going through the kids' backyard where they're going to learn education. Help the community with the jobs, reutilize the industrial park, lay the pipeline through the 88 corridor. That's what I'm asking. Please do your due diligence as we need you to. Protect our water as it is one of 3 things you need for life or to grow food. One of the 3 things. So 2 of the 3 things you need to live. Thank you for your time.
R-A-H-K-R-O-L. I am a landowner and full-time resident of Schoharie County. This is tyranny, not democracy. If the FERC approves this pipeline, you are enabling a large corporation to seize and take our property, not for the benefit of Americans, but for the benefit of this corporation's bottom line. The fossil fuel industry has turned into a monstrous tyrant. You may not have noticed that over 210 municipalities in this state has adopted legislation which opposes fracking. New Yorkers are standing up to defend and protect our families and this beautiful, clean environment. I thank Governors Patterson and Cuomo for stalling, because reports of disasters surrounding this industry far outweigh the jobs that it promises. The latest being the birth defects in the children of mothers living near a frack well site. We know about the blowouts because we witnessed the destruction of the ecosystem in the Gulf of Mexico, and the 9-square-mile aquifer in Dimock, Pennsylvania that was forever contaminated because of spills, accidents, and 3 faulty wells during shale gas development. Cabot paid those families off to silence them and make them go away so they can keep up the lie. This industry is willfully ignoring the evidence and warnings from experts like the engineer and fracturing mechanics scholar Anthony Ingracia, who says 5% of well casings fail upon initial well drilling, or that 50% of concrete casings will fail within 30 years. It won't be long before contaminants from frac fluid like benzene and toluene will be showing up in all the drinking water wherever this industry exists and where the aquifers extend. Incidentally, ExxonMobil is buying up water rights all over this planet. Imagine a future where this tyrant controls the world's drinking water. Ecologist and biochemist Bob Haworth warns of the fugitive emissions of methane released into the atmosphere during production, storage, processing, along pipelines, venting, and at compressor stations. Methane is a serious global warming contributor. Yes, it's been a cold winter, but it hasn't stopped the glaciers in Greenland from melting at alarming speed. The cases of asthma, lung cancer, headaches, brain tumors, nosebleeds, skin rashes, nerve disorders. The radon exposure alone from the Marcellus shale gas will likely kill 80 people per year in New York City. Those that used to hunt for game in Pennsylvania say the deer from that state have cancerous tumors when you cut into them, because they are attracted to and drink the frack waste in open holding ponds. New Yorkers will not be sacrificed for the benefit of this industry. We don't want your injection disposal wells causing earthquakes, your radioactive solid waste, your chemical-laden hazardous liquid brine, and this damn pipeline, which is at the heart of this madness. This greed for profits above and beyond all human decency. These people should be behind bars, not allowed to plunder and destroy our resources, deplete and contaminate our fresh water in the name of business. Cabot, Williams, Piedmont, ExxonMobil, Shell, Chevron, government officials on the tape, and everyone duped by the promises of this industry, open your eyes, we don't want your business, go away.
Yeah. For subdivisions and small apartment buildings. This is a freaking pipeline, 90 plus miles. What are you doing? Where do you get off on this? I know you got cozy jobs. I know this is the check off on Cobleskill when you're out of here. This is so wrong. It is an absolute outrage. I'm going to go through a couple of points in your EIS to just highlight the absurdity with which you dismiss things in these absolutely, like this gentleman said, these conclusory statements with nothing. No fact, no basis, just because we don't feel like it, because we don't want to. That's how it reads. It's nuts. So, the first one, conclusions in the EIS are based on our analysis of the environmental impact and following assumptions. And the assumptions are bulletized, and they basically go on to say the applicants will comply with all applicable laws and regulations. The applicants would implement the mitigation measures included in their applications and supplemental submittals to the FERC, blah, blah, blah. This is Cabot Williams, okay? We heard some really interesting discussion about Google Math. I'll give you something to Google. Google Cabot Williams plus the word environmental, or the words environmental violations. You'll get pages, pages. These people do not perform, they lie, they cheat, they pay the fines, they don't care, and you're just sitting here saying, yeah, well, it's all good as long as they say, as long as they're going to do what they say, I guess we're okay with that. I mean, come on. I mean, this is, who do you think we are? I said this at the last set of hearings. We're not a bunch of stupid people in caves. We live in the country, we're smart, we care about our land and water, we're human beings. What are you doing to us? This does not make sense, okay? This is wrong. And I know, because I read people and I get people. You guys know this. Don't kid yourselves. You know what's going on. You know the little game that's being played here. Let me give you another example. In your conclusions, I mean, I'm not even going to the insurance stuff where you just say, yeah, well, we talked to a bunch of insurance brokers and it's inconclusive, so we're gonna monitor that. We're gonna monitor that insurance thing. And then the mortgage issue is, well, we talked to some brokers and, we just, it was just unclear to us whether or not, loans could be made or not. But that's, we should all be good with that. That's some really top quality analysis, guys. Let me just go to my last piece, which to me, you have one paragraph on your evaluation of co-location. People have been bringing this to your attention, and I will do it one more time. There are existing pipeline rights of way that can get the damn gas to the markets in New York and Boston. You don't need to plow over our properties and our lives to do it. This, and why? Because Constitution doesn't want to what? Suck it up and pay some extra money to their competitors? Because it's too much, Their machismo gets knocked down because they got to suck it up and pay off their competitors to co-locate. This is so wrong, guys. You have really not done your job. You have really failed this community. You have failed literally hundreds and hundreds of homeowners. I mean, this is a drop in the bucket. Some of the beef farmers, the folks they're talking to about what's going on in their property, you think they're the only ones? There's hundreds and hundreds. It's outrageous. I'm done. Thank you so much.
Phillips, Phillips. I did write a comment over the last few weeks, but I think I might just set that aside. And one point which, after sitting here and everyone else talk, I'm kind of left with another new question is, why is the relationship, or why is the history of the pipeline not taken into serious consideration? Like any other relationship with, like when we vote for a politician or buy a new car or whatever, we make these decisions based on the history that person or that product has offered us. And the history that these pipelines have offered the residents that they've already affected has been so weak and so broken and sad that I don't know why we can't consider that as a serious aspect in making a decision about allowing this pipeline to come through.
First of all, that whole document that they sent out and you sent out is so uneasy for most people to find any information on maps, all the maps. You need to take pages and things from other documents and do your own overlay to find out where the route is going in relationship to a road, where is there going to be a stream crossing in relationship to where your house is. There should be a simple way that you could plug into your address and see everything on their maps, but you don't see that. It's all up to you. I found the part that's going through my valley just by guessing where it might be, and I found the document I was looking for. The other thing I have to say is I'm a member of Trout Unlimited. I'm a member of the Audubon Society. I care very much for the environment. I'm very concerned about all this equipment coming with their tires from someplace else and their boots, their work boots. Do they wash their work boots off after they came from someplace else? We have a huge problem with invasive species in the state of New York. And my final comment is, I consider the worst invasive species to be the gas industry. They are going to destroy us and we will not allow it. You got it.